What's going on, beautiful J4 family? Welcome to a Sunday edition of Dad's Talk. So excited to have you here. Apologize for missing last Sunday. I was on a father-son trip with my dad in New Orleans, kind of in his stomping grounds, really just kind of bonding with my dad. I cannot recommend it more, beautiful folks. If you can spend some time with a parent on a trip, kind of put yourself back in child mode, son mode, daughter mode, and just go in spaces that they kind of grew up in and let them reminisce. I think it was rejuvenating and certainly highly fulfilling for me personally, but I could see just in the warm smile of my dad just how much that trip meant. So we're glad to be back here with you all. As you all know, J4 Conversation is simply dads having conversations about what it means to be fathers at various stages of life, but also chances to talk about or with our sons and daughters, just sort of coming of age kind of narratives. To that point, I'm very, very honored to have two dear friends of mine with me, both returners to the J4 platform. B. Smith, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. AJ, how you doing?
I'm loving life on a Sunday, shopping with the brothers. I don't know if your team won. Who were you going for?
Yeah, I was going for Golden State, man. You know, they pulled it out at the last second, so it was
I
good.
don't know. I don't know if I want to see Golden State and the Suns. I'd rather have somebody get them off right away.
Well, now I really am pulling for Phoenix because I want the brother to win. I kind of want
Right.
to, but right now between Golden State and Memphis, I'm going with Golden State.
Okay. Well, I'm rooting against them.
I like that pick. I like that pick.
Corey, how you doing, man? How'd your
Good
Sunday
man. I'm
look?
doing good, AJ. Good to see you, man. Good to see you, man. I'm doing great.
Definitely. So today's topic is are things that our sons should know by, let's just say, arbitrarily 18 years old. Things that they should know, that they should be capable of, that are a part of their ascension or transition into adulthood, that will sort of, at least make them equipped to kind of function as grown folks, adult managing life, which eventually will be their own children. And hopefully that will come out of a space of intentional parenting. One of the underscoring themes of J4 Conversation is intentional fathering. Have a baby out of preparation with someone you love rather than out of passion with someone you don't. And so these are conversations that sort of stimulate and sort of underscore the importance of intentional fatherhood. But once the baby's born, you got to do something with them other than just feed them and house them and clothe them, right? You got to teach them something. You got to impart some knowledge or some practical skills that they can have as part of their life's toolkit so that they can function at the highest level. For those of you all just joining us, welcome. So glad to see you guys. Truly, tremendously appreciate y'all being here. I see Latanya Jones in the house. She's recommending Curtis Hall. Tanya, thank you so much for being here with us. Let's go ahead and start with the question here, Corey. I'm going to go to you. Why do you think conversations among fathers are critically important?
So, I think, Jay, that's a great question. And I thought about it the last time I was on your show. And I thought about how much it meant to me to hear other folks talk about things that I was going through in my life. And so I'm a product, I think you know this already, that I grew up without a father. My father and I, once my mom and dad got divorced, we kind of drifted apart. So I would say from the time I was like maybe 12 years old, I was without a father. And so, when I had my own kids, I really didn't have any blueprint, no one to talk to about those kind of things. I was like really doing it on my own. So
Right.
when I hear other folks, other fathers talk about issues that I'm going through, it kind of helps me know that, maybe I'm not alone. Number one, I know I'm not alone, but two, it kind of helps me listen to other people who are going through similar things, who have been through other things that I'm going through, that can give me knowledge. So I think from that standpoint, it's something that I think is valuable to have other fathers talk to other fathers about just, the ideas of growing up and the ups and downs of being a father. I think it really is a tremendous amount of support to have other fathers, if nothing else, be a sounding board, but also to impose knowledge upon you, perhaps, and you could avoid some things that they went through. So I do think it's important in that aspect. So I'm very thankful for this platform. Uh, I've learned a lot so far, and I'm hoping to learn even more today from talking to you brothers today. So I do think it's important, really
Man,
important.
Brad, I'm so glad to hear you say that because there's a certain kind of humility there, a humbleness rather, right? that, you know, we can do the physical act of producing a father, and we can just sort of stumble through what it means on a day-to-day basis, right? And all the opportunities for fathering that are actually leaned into or missed. But yes, we got to talk to, you know, sometimes our own fathers are sources for information, but in the case of you, Corey, fathers around, right? So you can try to figure this out solo dolo, or you can reach out to this generational
shop, a space where men can talk to other men about different issues, concerns, problems, and just share our knowledge and just try to, you know, challenge one another to be better, have more than what we had, and do better than we did or we thought was done for us and with us. So I think this space, this conversation is crucial. You always come with the fire topics, man. You haven't shied away from anything, which is the other thing I like about being able to participate with you is you come with conversations that are real. You offer not just the questions, but some solutions and tips. And at the end of the day, you know, if somebody doesn't agree with us, that's cool.
Right.
But they still have to think about, like, this is space for critical thinking. And you know me, that's my whole thing. I want to be a critical thinker. I want to learn something new every time. So every time I log on and watch the show or I'm a part of the show, I learn, you know, just like I'm trying to teach.
Right. No, B, I truly appreciate that, right? You know, we'll call this the barbershop for the bald heads. Right? You know, the barbershop for the bald heads. Hey, Dr. Lynn, how are you doing? Hope you had a great trip. Thank you so much. It was a trip of a lifetime. For those of y'all joining in Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, shout us out. Let us know what platform you're on and where you're at. Feel free to add your thoughts on things that sons should know how to do by the age of 18. All right. So without further ado or delay, B, I'm gonna go to you. Hit us with what, and then also I want us to rank order them at the end. I apologize for my dog in the background, but B, you
Yes.
start us off first round. This is the first rounder, and one rule: you cannot repeat. You cannot repeat something someone else has said. So B,
someone, okay, cool. One thing that I believe we need to teach our sons to do is to dress appropriately. That, you know, so there's places in which when we grew up, we had play clothes, we had church clothes and school clothes. And, you know, now I think it's just so wide open that everybody believes that casual is the thing and that casual is what you wear all the time. So for instance, I see young brothers and they have a do-rag on when they're out and they might be going to the mall, they might be going to the store. And, you know, when I ask them, say, hey, brother, you know, what's up with the do-rag? Particularly if they're like my nephews. I'm like, hey, why are you wearing this do-rag right now? Well, I'm getting my hair ready for when I go somewhere. And so my next question is always, well, what's important enough that you're going to take the do-rag off? Like, aren't you somewhere when you're here? You know, so I think there's a time and a place where young brothers need to understand you put on a tie, that you put on dress pants as opposed to jeans, that there is a such thing as being too casual for the situation. So I want brothers to learn how to dress. Now you can choose not to dress up or not to dress down, but not make that like you didn't know any better. And I think that's what I see a lot of where young brothers just haven't been told, hey, there's an appropriate way to go to certain places where you will be less likely to be picked on or picked out or singled out just solely based on how you showed up. You know, particularly if you're, you know, black, we're talking black men. So we're already looked at with a negative no matter how we show up in the space. So I'm not even talking about politics or respectability. I'm talking just you as a black man telling your son, there are times that I want you to dress up because the environment or situation says you should, out of respect. Not like somebody's trying to force you to be different than who you are, but there's a respect to it. A funeral, a wedding, you know, there's just a way that you should show up in those spaces.
Yeah, B, you're talking about a theme that's kind of popular right now, sort of in the male manosphere space, about suits and what are the identity dynamics around suits, right? And, you know, one of it is you have this intergenerational dynamic where the young people are perceiving it as a respectability critique, right? You know, these older men are sort of saying we got to manage our image sort of at the highest level, and that we ought to be dressed sharp more often than casual. And then the younger generation was sort of holding on to a dynamic of authenticity that's expressed outwardly through aesthetics, through their clothes. And I don't think there's a disagreement that, you know, on occasion you ought to have a suit or two for certain kind of fare, but to critique young people on the way they dress, there's a pushback to that. You know, and I'll be interested in your thoughts, Corey, but I think certainly within the culture, there's a leaning in towards high casualness, high comfortability. I think it becomes the aesthetic of a culture, and problematically, to dress up more frequent or without designed occasion, job interview, funeral, wedding, is something that sort of shied away. But I absolutely agree with you. I think you put on a shirt, some slacks, you put on a tie, you put on a button-up shirt, and it puts you in a mental, psychological, different kind of space. And uniform does convey how you move and interact in spaces, you know?
True.
So, you know, I'm all for that. I agree. I think that recognizing that we're judged by how we're dressed, unfortunately or fortunately, for whatever it's worth, you know, people look at you and they'll make certain assumptions about you by your dress. And I think at some level, by just letting your kids know, hey, look, you know, people are going to judge you because of how you're dressed, right? And they're going to look at you and think certain things, rightly or wrongly, right? But that being said, too, one of the things that I'm always torn by is like with my oldest son, he loves dressing a little bit too much. You know what I mean? And I always try to tell him, like, look,
is that him in the back, Coral?
yeah, it's in the back. But one of the things that he
What's
does,
up, young man? What's good, young man?
he has a habit of focusing too much on the dress and not enough on the substance, right? So I'm always trying to say that's cool that you want to go to school looking cool and nice haircut, but you know there's a reason why you're going to school, and don't let that, you know, don't forget that fact. You know what I mean? Do the other part, but the other parts are important as well. So you know what I mean? So I'm all for that, but I think we have to teach kids, you know, when you're going to that funeral, when you're going to that wedding, of why you're going there. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes kids can lose, get caught up so much in the dress that they forget why they're going and doing what they're doing. So I think that's always an important thing, is teaching them about what really is important, which is getting your education. If you're going to school and you want to dress nice, cool, but go there and get your education. You know, don't let the dressing get you caught up to where you don't want to go to school. I have my son some days don't want to go to school because they don't have a certain outfit to put. So that's just wrong, right? At every level. So, but I do agree that dressing appropriately and putting some time and thought into that is definitely important. But I also think the other side is also important, which is focus on what you're doing and why you're doing it. So,
So for fathers listening in, maybe young dads, you know, I remember when I bought my son his first suit, and he kind of he liked to be fashionable. Bought him his first hard sole shoes, you know, no Payless rubber black shoes that they were wearing. But what do you think, you know, for a young teenager, what do they need to have in their closet in terms of a dress up perspective? What do you think they need to have?
Man, a dress up. I mean, to me, you know, I always believe in this. I don't think kids should have to wear look a certain way when it should be age appropriate, right? I don't think you need a tie. I don't believe you need a tie in order to be formal, to go to a wedding or a funeral, whatever. But something with a nice pair of casual slacks, a nice pair of shoes. The price to me is unimportant.
Yep, we lost him.
We lost Corn. What do you think you need to have in the closet there, B?
Hey, well, I think you need to have a decent pair of jeans, a nice pair of slacks. I think everyone should have a suit. Again, I'm not telling you to dress for other people. I'm telling you we need to teach our sons how to dress for themselves so that they have options. When you feel like dressing up, I want you to be able to dress up and understand why you felt like dressing up that day. I am in no way saying, oh, if you put this suit on and a tie, the police won't bother you, because that's not real. What I'm saying is the day, like there's a day where I just want to feel like $1 million and a button-up shirt with some cufflinks and a tie. That might really push my mood in a certain direction, and I'm just going to wear it. Not because I'm going anywhere in particular, but that just helps me feel a certain way about myself and how I want to move that day. And so I think that they need a suit. And again, we got to talk about, I'm glad you all talked about age. I think, but when you hit your teens, you need a suit. And you need to have a tie, at least know how to tie a tie, so that, again, if you wanted to go somewhere where somebody did say, tonight you need a tie and a suit, you won't have to say, well, I can't make it because I don't have one. You know,
Mhm.
you still can attend that kind of an event, and you won't be sitting around feeling left out if your peer group or whoever at that point, wherever you're going, it requires you to dress a certain way. You might get an award. You know, those are the kind of things. Like, I want people to understand that there are special occasions where you go into these spaces looking and feeling your best. And part of what you put on, the uniform, costume, whatever you want to call it, that you wear, has something to do with that. So,
Man, you bringing up a heck of a point. There's nothing like being in a higher professional space or something more formal, and then you feel like your dress game is not where it needs to be, right? I remember being a senior in college, kind of around the interview time, and I had some piecemeal pants that didn't even really fit. You know, couldn't even button the collar, had the tie all loose, and I felt like a duck out of water, man. But yeah, go ahead and invest in a nice suit. Make sure that it's, make it, sort of solid black or blue or something like that, where you can wear it on multiple occasions and then switch out the shirt, whatever the case may be. Get you some solid black shoes, belt to match. And man, it does just transform you. But it also is saying psychologically that I am so complex in my young maleness that I have
Yeah.
variety of things of which I need to be sort of dressed for. And one of those is that I have an expectation of myself that I will be invited into spaces where higher formality is there, right? And it's almost a visual dress representation of a broadening of a mindset to say, hey, most of my gear is casual, but I'm a kind of human being that's going to have these other kinds of experiences. Granddad says the workforce balance and working from home is everyone dressing crazy.
hey,
That's from the 78-year-old, y'all. Corey,
hey,
you went out there a minute. Anything you wanted to add?
You know what? No, I do. I agree. I think having that special occasion suit or whatever is definitely something that every kid should have, and it does show the flexibility of them being able to get out of that casualness and dress up. And I do think it transforms you into how when you look good, you feel good sometimes. You know what I mean? So I think every kid should have that. But at the same time, too, I only say this because I know that I have a son who's on the other spectrum where he likes to look good all the time, and that's cool. I have no problem with that. But I also want him to have the substance behind the suit. You know what I mean? I want him to have that, that solid foundation, and don't get caught up so much into the dress where it's all about show and fashion, and not enough about that solid, foundation of being in the books. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think that's the part that I'm right now dealing with him on, is trying to make sure it's cool. You want to look good and fly for the girls. I get it. But don't lose track of what's really important. That's all.
hey, AJ, the other dynamic about that we didn't really discuss, the process of buying a suit
Mm.
is another skill set. And so, my father didn't take me to buy my suit. Like my very first suit, my mother took me to buy a suit for Easter. But to go in there and have the person measure my neck and measure my arm, like to feel like, oh my God, I'm a million, because we weren't rich by any means. But to
Mm-hmm.
have this experience of this is how this is different. We were used to go to like a Sears or something and get some school clothes. But to go to this specialty store where these people are measuring you and the ties look a little different, and it's a different kind of experience. I think that there's something to having, again, you have that experience. And if you choose as an adult to not continue that experience, that's one thing. But at least you know how to do it. I've worked with international students who've come over here, and when it's time for them to get that job market, AJ, they need a suit because they didn't bring one from their home country, but now they're dealing with the American. So I've been in those spaces watching those young men try to navigate that and how uncomfortable they are trying to figure this out on their own. And if I hadn't been there with them, they would not know how to even approach buying a suit. So I just think that's part of that skill set that comes with it. It's not just how you look, but to be able to go through the process of where you buy your clothes, how do you buy certain, what are the materials? Because as we all want to grow up a little bit and we want to have a little access to some finer materials. So how do you even start evaluating that if your only frame of reference has been the department store shopping experience or the big box, Walmart? If you buy all your clothes from Walmart, nothing wrong with Walmart. But if that's a very different experience than going to, the men's warehouse or something different like that.
Yeah, I was just about to say, where are some good places to go get a suit? I mean, I remember buying suits from Burlington at one point. Also, Men's Warehouse is kind of where I go now. I wouldn't call myself a fashionito. I've been in athletics so long, I'm just polo down to the socks, man. But Men's Warehouse is kind of where I'll go. But Corwin, I know you got a hint towards the finesse. What high end suits place you going to?
Oh man, you know what? I have so many suits, man, from all over, man. Like I don't really go to any particular place. I really try to find really good deals. I really do a lot of ordering online nowadays, believe it or not. Once you have your sizes and whatnot, you have a tailor. If you want a tailored suit, you can give them your sizes. There's lots of different companies now where they'll send you out the initial cut fabric and whatever. You can pick your fabrics now and whatnot. You want your wools, your nice wool suit and whatever else. So I think there's a lot of online stuff, and the prices, believe it or not, have come down for a tailored suit. Believe it or not, you can get your tailored suit that fits you to a T now on some of these websites and whatnot you go on. So I recommend anybody, as you get older, to get at least one good tailored suit. One good tailored suit, whether you go to some place and get it, tailored for you, or get it fitted to your whatever your size is and whatnot. One good pair of shoes. You don't need to buy 2 or 3 pairs of shoes. One solid pair of shoes that you can have for every occasion, every wedding, every funeral. You don't need tons of shoes and whatnot. So
yeah. All right, so we have our first thing that sons should do, and that's have an appropriate dress attire for multiple different kind of options. For those of y'all in the box, we thank you guys so much for joining us. Love to know if you all have any recommendations on things your son should know by 18. All right, let's continue on. Corwin, your turn. What do you think?
The next, I would say every kid should know how to shut up and listen. Sounds really simple, but very difficult, I think, for a lot of kids. Like my kid, they know everything. I know that. Sometimes you need to just shut up and listen to what I got to say, right? And so to me, as a father, that's what I'm always trying to instill. Shut up and listen. Sometimes I think you learn so much more by listening. I mean, and it sounds simple, but so difficult for some of these kids because they know everything, right? And so shut up and listen. Listen to what I got to say, to what your mom got to say, other adults, other folks who have a little bit more experience than you that can tell you some stuff that maybe you'll learn something if you shut up and listen. So that's something that every kid should know how to do by the age 18 or 19 is shut up and listen to what I got to say.
Wow, Brad, you told shut the heck up and listen.
Hey, man. I mean, it's like that. Shut up. Shut up and listen to what I got to say.
Now, okay, well, all right. Now, how do you teach that? Because this is about practicality. We all have a wish list, but how do we make it happen? What do you do?
I think, sometimes it's over time. One of the things that I try to do with my kids is spend that time with them. So, they know what I expect of them. Now, it doesn't happen overnight, but sometimes just getting into their grill, getting into their face, getting into their space, and having that 5-minute conversation. You know what? I understand what you're saying, but shut up and listen to what I got to say. I want to hear you say anything. I want you to listen to what I got to say, and then I'll hear you. And just really doing that. And believe it or not, when you force them to really shut up and listen, it's something that after they start listening to you and give you 5 good minutes of their time where you're literally telling them what it is, whatever the issue is, and then you give them your time and you listen to what they got to say. So it goes both ways. But I think it's easier when you have that relationship already established, where they know that you have their best interest at heart, and all you're trying to do is teach them something. So son, just shut up for a second and listen to what I got to say. Try that. Try that. I think it works.
Yeah. Do they get on the defense when you shut up versus hold on, let me finish my thought?
My kids, when I say shut up, they know this is serious. You know what I mean? This ain't I ain't playing around here. When I say shut up, because I could use other words, but I choose not to. I can say, can you be quiet for a second? I could ask a question, but I'm gonna ask. I'm making a demand, right? Shut up, right? As opposed to, hey, can you please be quiet? Which is different. At least my kids are no. He suggested that I be quiet. He ain't telling me to shut up yet. When he says shut up, he means it's time.
Right,
and so that's why I choose that word, shut up, as opposed to give me a minute. Can you be quiet? So
D, can you co-sign on that?
Oh man, that's a life skill right there. There's a difference when a police officer tells you to shut up versus when he asks, why don't you just be quiet, young man? When the cop says shut up, now we talking life or death. Your next word could cause you to be the victim of a bullet, like,
yeah.
So I wholeheartedly agree. The idea of knowing when to shut up and when to listen, like how to even be in a space and be invisible. We grew up being in spaces with other adults, but having smart enough sense to not say something. Because the minute you open your mouth and interrupt an adult conversation, there's consequences. You going go clean your room. Something that if you would have just shut up, you would have just been able to stay in the space and absorb whatever was going on. But since you opened your mouth, now you're about to be embarrassed, and put to work. And 9 times out of 10. So yeah, that shut up is killer. Shut up and listen. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I think all of us at some point need to understand when to interject, when to voice our opinion, and learn the sophistication of understanding conversation flow, right? When is a person clearly done stating their ideal, they fully express their thought, and then in that pause is then your opportunity. But with our children, I also think we got to, depending on the severity of what we're trying to share, right? That if we could set the stage, say something like, hey, I'm going to talk to you about this. I need you to listen. I need you to fully let me share what I need to share. And I promise you, you will have a chance to ask questions, to tell your perspective. But for this particular moment, I need you to just sit here and listen, right? So if you can set the stage in some ways, that might cut off a pattern of interjection. Transparency, talking it out. And then if you observe them in mixed company, kind of, inappropriately speaking up, although intergenerationally, it's a different dynamic, that you could correct them either in the moment through that look if you need to, right? Or, when you're alone, you can say, hey, here's how conversation nuances play themselves out around these kind of circumstances. And a lot of times they just may be feeling comfortable or energetic and impulsive in a moment, and they're just, blabbing at the mouth. But yeah, how to communicate appropriately, particularly young people in adult settings, or when they need to get that parent lesson and fully understand it. Agreed. All right. For those of y'all listening in, feel free to share your thoughts, ask questions, what his sons need to know. I'm going to go a little bit more practical. I'm going to say chess. I think if you're young, if your sons can learn how to play chess, that'll be an advantage to them. I learned how to play chess probably around 8 years old. B, to one of your questions, do all lessons need to come from dads? I don't think so. I think I learned, I was living in Italy at the time, and I had a friend, maybe a couple of years older than I. He was a chess head, and he taught me the game of chess. And the pace of chess, this was pre-internet, pre-phone, right? You were bored a lot, and chess and Monopoly took up a whole lot of time. And I was looking for self-distraction as a single kid, and I enjoyed the game of chess. I never got very good at it, but I found that it gave me a process of having to think far out, right? To think 2 or 3 steps, and to be mindful of what might it, what am I going to do? What's the reaction, right? It taught me about cause and effect. It also taught me about, at some point, you got to sacrifice either small pieces or big pieces, right? In order to get to what your objective is, which is to win in this particular circumstances. And it also taught me that there's many ways that things can go. There was unpredictability in it, especially if you're playing against a more sophisticated player. And then not to racialize this thing too much, not a lot of brothers knew how to play chess. And so when I was in mixed company, whether in high school or college or even social settings in my peer group, and chess came up, I could at least know how to move the pieces and strategize a little bit. And so it was a broadening of my worldview, and it also allowed me to be relevant in different kinds of spaces. Certainly, there are Black people that play chess, play it quite well, but I found in my travels and circles, it was few and far in between. And so when it came up, I kind of had an advantage in that space, and also the lessons learned in the game.
Can you get chess on Nintendo or PlayStation 5? Or,
Yeah.
because that's how they. If you're gonna teach them, that's where they're probably gonna learn it.
Now, do you guys know how to play chess?
I can't play. I play checkers, man. So I guess they're all saying about it's better to play chess than checkers, but I never learned. But one of the things I've always wanted to learn, I was fascinated by chess players, but I never played. So the fact that you play, Jay, I mean, that's amazing. I wish my kids knew how to play chess. And I think because one of the things, chess takes time, right? You sit down, you could be doing chess for hours, right? I've seen people play chess for hours. So I wish I could play. I would teach my kids if I could.
Yeah, I play. I can play. I have numerous chess boards around the house, and now I've even started making custom chess sets for a few friends of mine. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, but you know what? I think the thing that's cool about chess is that chess almost screams intellectual.
Yeah.
So when you see a brother playing chess, automatically they just elevate themselves to a whole nother level. No matter how broken their English is, no matter what clothes they're wearing, the fact that they understand this game, it means that they have at least a higher level of intelligence and intellect than you thought prior to seeing them play chess.
A lot smarter than me.
Even if that's just a front or a fake or an association, right? Yeah. It is one of those. It has these stereotypes tied to it.
But a good one though. Because I think it suggests, hey, this brother, hey, he plays chess. That means he's to be taken seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So let me go. I'll start the second round. Great. So far we have dress appropriately, shut up and listen, and chess. Okay. To stay in the spirit of games, I'm also going to recommend that your sons need to know how to play dominoes. All right.
Yes.
You need to know how to play dominoes. And the reason I'm saying this is because dominoes and spades, I don't know how to really play spades, but dominoes is often the social currency when folk get together, right?
Yes.
Whether that's men getting together, men and women in social settings, college spaces, house parties, I think they call them kickbacks right now, pool parties, whatever the case may be. That if you know how to play dominoes, you understand the numbers, you understand, counting the numbers, you got a little, you could talk a little smack, you could hold your own a little bit, that you're holding your own among your peer group. And so while others are sort of, sipping some drink or eating some food or in the pool or kind of dance, whatever the case may be, at some point, you're going to get to the table and the ivories are going to come out. And if you can hold your own there, then you're signaling to your peer group that I'm hip, I'm with it, I'm understanding how to sort of be in the space. And as a biracial kid, who was sort of navigating blackness early, I found that if I could speak to some history and play bones decently, it was going to be a good night.
And they let you get away with not playing spades?
Man, I would be whenever the cards come out, I'd quickly move that conversation to dominoes. We get some spades on.
But you know what though?
Corin, you broke up again.
Corin's gone again.
B, what any other games like that
learned how to play?
Go ahead, Corin.
I learned how to play a long time ago, right? But I didn't really learn the game until I was playing amongst other brothers who could play the game. And it's different, bro. I remember I was in law school playing with a couple of my homeboys, his brothers. They're from LA, and I played with them. And it's a different game. You know what I mean? They're playing in a way that I had never seen before. And I'm like, it took me a while. I knew the game, but the confidence I had to build up to play with these brothers, like they playing on.
B, do you have a domino story?
I'm kind of the opposite of you. I could play spades and couldn't play dominoes. I can play now. I don't have a peer group of friends who sit around and play a lot. I don't find myself in those kind of social spaces too often. There is a dominoes game on my iPad I can play, but that's not the same. It's like Corin just talked about. There's the rules and basic dominoes, but then there's playing when you with a brother. It's just like any other sport. Once we get into it, that changes the dynamic of the game. Like it's a whole new level.
So there's matching the colors, right? And there's understanding rudimentary, but then there's the nuances of projecting and bones down the line. But if anybody listening, y'all want to kind of play on fly clops, just look up AJ Wax. I'd love to see what the game's like. AJ Wax. Let me put that in the chat. Just to round this out, and I don't want to steal anyone else's thunder, but games come up in social settings, and for young men to sort of hold their own in ways that are healthy and fun, and not be on the outside where everybody's laughing and playing, and then you just don't have the skill set, so you kind of remove yourself from the situation. Maybe not so much now, but pool was a part of that. Certainly would recommend spades, learning spades and dominoes, because those are activities that young people build friendships and fun around in social settings. And there's nothing like watching other folks have fun because you never did it. You're sitting in the back, right? And I would even add bowling to that. Bowling. So yeah. All right. So I went first. Let me see. B, you went first last time, so let's go with Corn.
My next topic would be advocate for oneself. Learning how to do that.
Corn got to get his Wi-Fi together.
Yeah,
you hear me?
Corn's Wi-Fi. You keep dropping off.
All right. How about now? I'm good now.
You good? Yep.
All right. It's being an advocate for yourself, right? Speaking up for yourself, because sometimes no one else will. And learning that ability, having that ability to have the confidence in yourself to speak up for yourself and be an advocate for yourself. It's something that I think it's easy to say it, but to do it in practice takes time and takes
B, how would you recommend? Corn, you broke off again, but yes, advocating for yourself, standing.
I'm there now. You hear me now?
Yeah, standing up for yourself, demonstrating you have a backbone. How do you teach that, right? How do you have a circumstance or a situation, or how would you teach your son to advocate for themselves?
So what I recommend is even on the little things, even on a day-to-day basis. Let's say you're at school and someone takes your pencil, or a little kid, and
Yep, lost him again.
B, how might you advocate for that?
So I think it's a skill building. It's sort of like what he talked about earlier. When you teach your son how to shut up and listen, that is step one in teaching him how to learn when and where to advocate for himself. And so getting him to understand, like, okay, this is what's being said about you, or this is what has happened to you. Now, what is your response? And just like you said, chess, you learn to play the game so that you start understanding what the next step is and what are the consequences of your decisions that you're making. So I think each one of these pieces, you have examples that your son can understand when you start saying, okay, this is about advocacy. And this is what I mean when I say learn how to advocate for yourself, how to stand up for yourself, how to speak up for yourself. And these are the occasions, and this is what it means. And this is why you have to understand what the consequences are. So this is why you have to know when to shut up and when to advocate versus just jumping out and opening your mouth and causing the situation to get worse. So I think that every little thing that we're talking about so far, particularly around the games, and I really, AJ, you really brought up something I hadn't really thought about in a while. I grew up playing board games.
Mm-hmm.
When we got together with other people, it was community. We listened to a common radio, and then we played these common games, whether it was Monopoly or chess, checkers, whatever it was, spades, domino. We did those things in groups. So you learned how to interact with each other. A lot of kids today, their interaction with groups is online.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not the same skill set. And
right.
So you miss out a lot on that. So you don't have to advocate for yourself. But when you're sitting across from somebody on spades and they're telling you reneged and you didn't, now you have to be able to articulate why you're cheating.
Right.
You got to be able to do that and say it, and that's different online. You can just log out and go to another room and play with some other people.
Right. Yeah. Or get brave with it. Right. Become a social media warrior anonymously. Right.
Yeah.
Corin, you broke out on us a little bit at the end there. Did you have any strategy on how to teach a person to advocate for themselves?
I think just by doing, man. I mean, I don't know if there's a strategy. Just always.
Well, Cornbread is locking up on us again. I'll say this:
Advocate. Should do it.
Corn, log off and log back in. You're breaking up. Log off and log back in. I'll bring you back in. For those of y'all just joining us or been on for a while, thank you so much. If you have not already, please go over to J4 Conversations on YouTube. Give us a subscribe, a like, perhaps share outward. If you see value in it for yourself or others, that would be greatly and tremendously appreciated. Today we're talking about things our sons should know by the age of 18. And the last comment was advocating for oneself. I have found that if a person has difficulty advocating for oneself, is that they're struggling with perceived confrontation. They're struggling with initiating asks or asking for clarity or challenging something that's been said. And oftentimes you can see in your younger children a hesitancy for even something as simple as, go up there and ask the person for a cup, right? Where are the napkins? Go over there and ask that person for the napkins. And you can see this hesitancy, right, in the young child, because they're afraid to kind of approach an adult, and who knows what the luggage is on that. But I have found that if you see a certain kind of hesitation in your children to approach other people than the family for asks, for conversations, for correction, or whatever the case may be, that's a pattern that might follow them in going forward. And so we got to identify markers when they're growing up as to see, are they capable and comfortable addressing another person from a space of individual, you're in your own agency, and you're asking and or requiring and demanding explanation or clarity. And a lot of that begins with early baby incremental steps where they are kind of getting out of their comfort zone and forced to kind of ask questions or forced to stand up for themselves. And one of a practical skill set is that when you see it, if you see them shy away from something, or if you see them avoiding something, that you force them to experience, you force them to go through it, and you let them kind of be uncomfortable under your watchful eye so that they can be comfortable when they're outside their eye in their own adulthood and they need to stand up for themselves. Great point. Corn, check your internet there. Talk to us. Let's see if you can stay with us.
I'm good now. I had the wrong. See? You got me now?
We got you. We got you.
Your picture isn't better.
All right. Let's move on to you, B. Your second. What a son should know.
All right, my second one. I'm gonna go back to some basics. I think a son should know how to cook and buy grocery. Because it's one of those things where you don't want to be that brother who feels like I need somebody else in my life to do the domestic things that I don't want to do, but I don't know how to do. And so if you can't cook and then you know how to go to a grocery store and buy the things that you need to make a meal, and not just for one day, but for a week or a month, then I think you come to a relationship or even to yourself with a deficit. You're dependent upon someone else, and then that becomes the reason that you need that person or stay with that person. Oh, he or she's a good cook, and I need you in my life because you can cook and do the thing I can't do. And so I think that every young brother needs to know how to cook and to buy groceries, to shop.
What you think?
I agree with that. I often say, I don't need. I always say this about myself. I don't need anybody, but I want you in my life. You know what I mean? Which is different. You know what I mean? It's like me saying what he's saying, which is I want you in my life, but I don't need you because I've learned to do everything.
Hold on, y'all. My wife just walked by. Let's be careful about this. Let's tone it down just a little bit. We don't want to co-sign on any of our earlier day arguments.
But you know what I mean? That's an important topic because, to be able to say, I want you in my life. Not because I need you to cook for me or shop for me or to do anything for me. I do all those things myself if I need to. I know how to get down like that. I can cook for myself. I can clean for myself. But I want you in my space. I want to be in this relationship with you, and to enjoy life with you. I don't need you for anything in terms of that. And that doesn't come off mean, in my opinion. It just comes off saying, look, I can do these things. I've been doing these things for myself, cooking for myself, cleaning for myself since I was 10 years old. You know what I mean? So I know some brothers who are younger, a lot older than me, they need folks to do things for them. And I know what he's saying by that. And I think that's always, you're at a deficit because you need someone in order to survive. Yeah. And you shouldn't have to put yourself in that position where you need someone else for your own survival.
Yeah. I would certainly underscore that, in part because I wouldn't necessarily advocate for a young man to leave their parents' house and then move into a house with a relationship, right? And then y'all are trying to figure that out, whatever is 18 or early 20s or whatever the case may be. I think there ought to be a time where a young man is living on their own with a roommate or by themselves, and they're experiencing a social time of life as they go from a dependent relationship to a parent's home into their own independence. And a part of that independence is just, providing for oneself. You can only eat so many Subways. Corn. I remember back in our day, we buy that foot long, and that'd be lunch and dinner, and you were just trying to figure it out. But there's at some point, just for your own food variety, it's important that you learn how to grocery shop, as B talked about. There's a budget element there as well, but also to be able to prepare a few things that you enjoy, that you like, and that if you have occasion, that you would prepare as part of a date, for someone that you were dating. And so, yeah, men need to cook, but then also, we got staples or basic things we know how to do, right? But when you get into the cooking, right, you become more like you can cook. Is when you get past your basic spaghettis and steak or whatever the case may be, and then you start to get creative. Some men will get to that level. I don't know if all of us were, but by way of a core recommendation, yes, teach your son some basic kinds of cooking meals, some recipes, how to shop, and then let them experience the pride and the sense of confidence that, hey, I'll work this out with my partner when we have those conversations about managing home, but autonomous and outside of that, I can manage my life beyond Subway, McDonald's, and Applebee's, right?
Yes.
Beautiful. Y'all joining in. Let us know what you think. Your sons ought to know. Who's it on now? Who's it on?
Corin, I think if we're going, because I was last, so it's Corin's turn to be first.
Okay.
I'm at where am I at? How to treat a woman. How to treat a woman.
I'm gonna stay quiet.
Something that every 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid needs to learn how to do is how to treat a woman right. And you say, well, how do you do that? And this is something that when I didn't have a father, or I had a father from the time I was say 11 or 12. But you really I learned on the fly, if you will. But how to treat a woman is kind of an important skill, because as you get older, women expect certain things from men in terms of independence, confidence, these things that they expect for a man to treat them a certain way. And something that every father should teach their sons on how to treat that woman, how to keep that woman, right? It's easy to get them. It's hard to keep if you don't treat them right. And it's something I think we got to teach our young men how to do.
Well, Granddad is co-signing with you. He said that was his input too. B, let me flow with this, and I'll let you get in.
Yeah.
That's a very big conversation, right? Big conversation. So early on, I looked for we'd have sort of first step conversations. One of the ones was, if you have someone you're interested in, right, and there's something formal that you want to ask her to go to, prom, junior prom, whatever the case may be, that you ask the father of the girl you're interested in if you can take her. In part, just to kind of be sort of old school chivalristic. It was also to show kind of to put your son through the awkwardness of having to make that call. There's also a setting of intent. If you ask the father, or you physically talk to the father, there's also some accountability that you're putting on yourself, because if you know who the daughter is, her people, then you treat her as a collective rather than an individual, and you kind of move differently.
Yep.
And then we also talked about, who pays on the first date, that kind of stuff. But then I asked the question, at what point is it appropriate that she pays, right? So you're having conversations that aren't one-sided. You walk it down the road a little bit. And so how to treat a woman is a big conversation. It's much more nuanced when you get in a relationship and you're dealing with two sensuous beings. But as sons younger than 18, what are the symbols of so-called good home training and chivalry? Pull out the seat, open the door, pay for the first date, ask the dad, bring perhaps some kind of small representative gift, that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, dads, I'd recommend that you talk about the very practicality, and they're appreciative of it because, like, sometimes you don't know, right? And to get a little bit of very straightforward strategy helps the beautiful young people.
Yeah. So AJ, that sounds good. And it's great if we went back in some kind of time warp.
Mm-hmm.
Those strategies work very well when, in order for you to access someone else's daughter, you had to go through a hardwired telephone.
Right.
Yeah. Now I don't need that. I have direct access to you. I'm in your DMs. I'm on your social media. So the rules change. And as hard as we try to teach our sons to date a certain way, their peer group has taught them a whole new system. That says what we're teaching them is inefficient and it's outdated. And I don't even know what the term is right now. I don't think they call themselves dating anymore. I know it used to be hookups and those kind of things. So I don't even know what they do. I watched a group of people last night at a wedding reception. I'm still trying to figure out what was going on. Because it was just that interesting of a dynamic, like so far removed from what I understood as dancing. We'll have to do a whole nother show on that. I'll come back to that. But I agree how you treat a woman. But here's the twist I want to put on that.
Okay.
How should you allow a woman to treat you?
Your son, you mean, right?
Yeah. You have to teach our sons how to be treated by women. And that's a real interesting thing again in 2022.
Again, I go back to symbols. I go back to symbols. There was and again, this is antiquated, but I was watching a Bronx Tale, and you had the old mafioso cat, that had the young man under his arm, and he was asking for some advice, quasi, and the old gangster gave him some advice about how to treat the woman, but then he said, "Hey, she has to show you that she too knows how to be in a relationship." And he told him a trick, right? Yeah. That when you get out of the car, you lock the door, right? This is old school pop up, push it down. And that when you
let her in first, you let her
in first, right? She sits down, but then when you walk around the car, he said, if that bee doesn't open your door, then she ain't been properly trained. And so the symbol, he's walking, he looks behind in the car, and she's reaching over to open it up, right? Which let him know she too has some home training on how to be this. Now, no cars are like that anymore, right? but for me, I talk to him about, hey, after some point, is this young lady also willing to pay for the date, right? Now, that's a small, who knows what it really represents, but it also represents that she understands you ain't balling like that, right? She understands that there's reciprocity in the relationship, and she understands at some point, as a gesture of, I understand the courtship process, old school or not, that I too at some point will need to chip in some kind of capacity. And then, how does she make you feel, right? Do her words show you, does she look you in the eye? Is she distracted? Does she make you feel valued, right? Does she make you feel heard? And those are sort of check-in conversations that we should have with our sons. How's your relationships? How's so-and-so? How's she doing, right? And in that, you can pick up cues as to the equality of that.
But how can you do that when everybody is distracted? You can't go on a date. If you go to any restaurant now, you're sitting in the restaurant. If there is a couple sitting next to you, they both got their phones out. They're doing this.
Yeah, but that's behavior down the road, right?
Well, but no, that's she taking a picture of the meal so she can post it on the Instagram that she off and she's checked in and to tell everybody she's at this location with you. So they're what we would consider to be present and to be respectful. They don't have those barriers anymore. Like if you don't post me on your social media, you don't really like me. So we got to take, I got to take your picture and I got to look to see who responded and replied. And this is all happening during the date. This isn't after the date.
Yeah.
So you don't have a person's attention like you used to. That's what I'm like. So young people, the rules have changed. Like I would really struggle. I'm glad my sons are adults now because I would really struggle how to teach them to date in this environment. I have more experience dating in.
I would agree. The social media, the amount of sexual innuendo, sexual visibility, the volume of people you have access to comparatively, Corin's premise was how to treat women, but even that is an old school woman. You assume you treat them because there's a rule book or some kind of protocol, but you're right, B. I mean, social media, and not to even mention jealousy. I mean, I couldn't imagine, dating as an 18-year-old in the modern time, right? That you gotta have a strong kind of confidence about yourself, or you do what many of my sons are doing. They reject social media. They're just rejecting it. I don't know, Corin, what do you think?
Well, I agree. I mean, I think social media has changed the game, but I still think those old school values are something to be valued. You know what I mean?
Right.
Despite that, I still think we as fathers can still break it down for our kids, daughters also, obviously, in terms of those things are there. But I still believe, even though my kids are on social media, I mean, they know more social media than I do. You know what I mean? They know all about everything. Dad, no, this is how you do it. But I still think those values, they don't go away. So I think we have to stick to those fundamentals at the end of the day. And you still can sit down and talk to your son or daughter about, hey, these are the things. This is how you treat a woman. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is how you pull out a chair for dinner. Those kind of things. We still can teach those old school values because they don't get old, in my opinion.
One last thought on that is to B's question, like maybe they're not dating, right? I was fortunate. All my kids at some point expressed priority interest in another person that then lended itself to a date. And so maybe dads and moms, if your son is sort of active and gregarious and seems personable and charismatic but never has a date, then maybe they're falling into the easy access pattern of the DM world. And so your conversation then is about, hey, have a date. You should be identifying a single person at this point that you can get to know at a deeper kind of level, rather than the immediate sexual undertone of the DM world that you're taking progressive steps. And then you might even want to have conversations about what does it mean to have a DM sexually overt or undertone kind of relationship. What does that mean to your development in terms of your own sexual worldview and sense of self? And so, in absence of seeing that, you might have to elevate and intensify the conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, go ahead, Greg.
I was just gonna say one thing. I think that's one thing as a father too, because I'm old school. I'm not up on all these DMs, and I'm forcing myself to be involved in that stuff and learn that stuff because my kids are on it, right? And they're doing those things. They're on those DM. They get those DMs, and what's the other one? Not Facebook. What's the other?
TikTok, Instagrams.
Yeah, man. They're doing the reels. They're doing all that stuff, man. So I gotta learn this stuff, this language. Really, it's a different language. I'm not familiar with all that stuff. So in order to have those meaningful conversations, I need to at least understand what they're doing or what they're into, so I can have those conversations in that area.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When you talk about social media world, and maybe I'm wrong here. I certainly would accept that, but I just can't see forcing them to show me their private DM world. At the same time, I'm not naive enough to know that I would be probably shocked or upset by kind of what I'm seeing. And so my approach, and again, there might be a naivete to it, is that I've always sort of just talked about the risks talked about the danger, always observe behavior, always look for cues of some change in character. And as long as I'm seeing a rhythm that's acceptable to me, again, I could be getting fooled, right? Then that's been my monitor. But what I don't want to have is at some point, right, that they feel I can come in and intrude upon their sense of private self at any given time. I'd rather convey sort of higher observed trust than hyper assumption that they're doing something nefarious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree. But my thing is, I think it gives them some incentive.
Mm,
When I tell you, I'm paying for this phone, and if I feel like it, I can pull it up and look at whatever it is I want to look at.
right.
That's your incentive to get a job and get yourself out and have
Right.
your
Right.
own film, your own.
Right. Yep.
So, then you don't have to worry about what I'm looking at because you paying for that.
Yeah.
It's not mine. But you're good. I can't imagine a situation where the child in my home where I'm paying the bills for whatever is going to tell me, no, I don't have access to something that I'm paying for, because that just ain't going to go well.
Yeah, and I think they wouldn't say no. They would be begrudging, but I think there's something that'll be remembered there.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
don't know if it'll be my dad is loving or my dad doesn't trust me. I don't know. I don't know. But they wouldn't say no, but I think there's we talked about cause and effect earlier. I think there would be an effect of that. Interesting. Okay. B, you went. So who?
It's on me now. Corn
Okay.
went. It's on me. So the next thing that I would say he needs to do is to learn he must know how to and be taught how to manage his emotions.
Mm,
And that means he's got to be taught that it's okay for him to cry. But there's, time and place about that too. There's politics around you crying in public and how that is going to be viewed. But if I teach you to hold it all in, there's consequences to you holding it all in. And then when you finally explode in the wrong place and wrong situation, there might be some consequence to that. Or if you never explode and you die at 30 because I didn't teach you how to properly manage your emotions and you had a stroke from holding all that anger or resentment or whatever it is in. So, if we don't talk about emotional management and emotional accountability, I think we do our sons a big disservice, because the world will teach them that men don't emote.
hmm
I don't think we can afford for our sons to go out into the world and be emotionless.
How do we do that? How do we teach them that they have emotions, right, beyond just stoicness and strength? How do we teach them?
I think there are times where we have tried to shield our children from the realities of our lives. So if I got, denied a promotion at work and it impacted me a certain way, I still came home and tried to act like I'm a big, strong daddy. Whereas I might need to come home and say, hey, son, tonight I'm going to be a little standoffish, and this is the reason why. And as you grow up, you might experience this where you ever had thought you have worked hard for something you wanted. So I think life will provide us opportunities to discuss these things in a different way. We just have never done it. And it could be like Brother Corn said, his father and he were separated at a certain age. My father was in my life. He was out of my life. Then he was back in my life. So the relationship, there were just certain things that he just felt like I was either too young to understand or just wasn't none of my business. And I think that those emotions came into that, because we never had to talk about him crying. And I shared this before. Like I don't have a memory of my father ever saying "I love you" to me.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean he didn't love me. He did these things. We had electricity. We had a house. Those kind of things in his mind. You went to college, boy. Of course I love you. But to hear the actual words, I have zero memory of that.
Yeah.
And so we have got to start talking about this. So even when we say it and we see our teenage son have some type of response to that, like, now what do I do with daddy said I love you, or, son, it's okay for you to say I love you back. And it's okay for me to say that to you. So we really got to have that kind of conversation. And for most of us, it is a very uncomfortable conversation because it is new space for us.
Powerful.
That is.
Corn, any reaction to that?
Yeah, it's funny because I think we talked about this kind of on the show I was on last time. The whole emotion about "I love you," saying those powerful words. growing up, now my father was not in my life. My mom was, obviously. I lived with my mom. My mom never said it either. Emotions were not in my house. Emotions were looked down upon. You know, you couldn't show emotion other than anger. You know, which is what you know. But beyond that, as far as having any type of variety to your emotions, you know, you don't say you love, you don't cry, you don't do those things. You know, boys don't do that. Men don't cry. You know what I mean? That whole concept. And my mom never said that, but that was kind of how it was. So the idea of saying I love you, it never happened ever. And now, as I'm a grown man, years later, now my mom tells me she loves me. Now it's like it's kind of it's a weird conversation for me. You know, I'm not, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, she says I love you. I'm like, but my kids every day, I tell them I love them every day of their lives. I make a point of every day telling them I love them. Why? Because I never want them ever to not to be able to come to me and share those emotions with me, because I share with them. I love you, son. Great job, son. You know, or whatever I'm going through in my life. You know, what if I had a bad day at work? Leave me alone right now. You know what I mean? I think that's true. You know what I mean? You know, things didn't go well. Oh, my was lost. I'm upset right now. You know?
Yeah, you know, well, first off, I appreciate the level of disclosure. You know, we're sharing personal lives. My dad definitely told me he loved me. My mother, I don't recall, but that would have been overshadowed by kind of a tense relationship I think we had. And this is all son, perhaps revisionist history. But there was an element of a European culture that was, I'm about to tell a silly story. European culture, in European culture, people embrace a lot. French, particularly, you know, you kiss on the right, kiss on the left, and parents kiss their children on their mouth, right? And that wasn't absurd for mothers, but men did as well. And so for a long time of my life, my dad and I would kiss on the mouth. I remember.
I still do it with my sons, and they're 13 and 11 every day.
Okay, but this was going to happen to you one time. I remember my dad was dropped me off at the airport, so I had to been going somewhere, right? And you know, customary. All right, Dad, I'll see you later. Kiss, and then I realized that as soon as I touched it, that's the last time I'm gonna do that. As soon as I kissed him, I thought that's the last time I'm gonna do that, right? Because it was something about the age set or whatever it was, but that you know, I realized, okay, that particular family form of expression had come to an end. But I had known affection like that, particularly from my paternal figure. And so I think the how-to is this is an instance where our words are not as loud as our actions to teach our sons emotion, both as you all talked about, to praise them or to underscore and co-sign when they do express emotion, and sometimes also to caution the expression of emotion in settings where that might be unfavorable to them, but also to model it in ourselves when possible. And then I think if we can take a situation where a range of emotions are at play and then talk that out, I call that confessing, where you talk about maybe how you experienced something before, how you failed at it, or how you managed through it. You're giving them example lessons rather than directional kinds of lessons. All this underscores that fathers, you got to be musicians at times. You got to have a certain sophistication in understanding your children's personality types and how you navigate through that. When do you push? When do you pull? When do you shut up? Right? And when do you almost exhaustively talk about it because it's something that absolutely has to be learned. All right, beautiful folks, we are at the top of the hour. If you have any questions, comments, y'all, this would be the time to put it in the comments. I have the last recommendation. I'm recommending that all your sons should have an opportunity to take care of a life before the age of 18. To take care of a life. What am I talking about? I'm talking about something living, goldfish, hamster, dog, cat, bird, something that is in their care, that they have the responsibility of ensuring that the animal has the water, has food, has playtime, has touch, is taken care of. If your children are like my children, they will take on this responsibility excitingly, but then they will quickly realize that without parental intervention, the life is vulnerable. The life is vulnerable, and you will also begin to. It becomes a conversation point about responsibility, about honoring what you asked for, and about the preciousness in having to be the primary care provider for a life, a bird, a rabbit, a hamster, whatever the case may be. And it is sort of subconscious preparation for future responsibility, but it also is a nice way to say, hey, the world does not evolve around you, which is an understandable posture to take when you're 13, 14, 15. But when you take this independent life that requires your management, then all of a sudden you realize I can't move and think and exist in an I-centered kind of phase. I got some low-level responsibility to this cat, right? So that's the last thing I would share. Let's close it out with any thoughts and reflections on that. Let's go with Corwin, and then we'll close out with B.
So we have 4 dogs, and I say we as a family have 4 dogs, but these 4 dogs were supposed to be my kids' dogs.
Yeah,
Each one, they were, oh, Dad, give me the dog, give me the dog. All right, son, give you the dog, take care of the dog. Take him out to go pee in the middle of the night, give him food and water. But somehow, some way, my wife and I end up, taking on responsibility. So I have to admit that I'm not there yet. I haven't learned how to make them take care of the life that they've asked to have. Right? 4 dogs.
Deny them dinner once.
I gotta learn. Okay, I have to do that because that's
wake them up at midnight and say the dog don't have no water.
Do what? What's it again, Jay? What'd you say?
Wake them up at midnight and say the dog don't have no water.
See, you know what? I'm gonna try that because I'm the guy that gets up in the morning at 5:36 when the dog needs to go to the bathroom. They're dogs, they're there for the good times, but when the dog needs to go out, or the dog, has an accident inside the house, Dad, the dog peed in the house or whatever. I'm the one that cleans it up, not them. So I'm failing in this department, guys. I have to admit, I agree. It sounds great because they need to learn that, but I'm not been successful in teaching them how to take care of a life that they've asked to have in the family.
Right. Yeah, and they're not going to be 100%, but it's a living teaching tool, to one, like you said, honor what you ask for in most instances. And, life isn't all about the fuzzies, the warms, and the nice, cute pictures. There's behind the scenes stuff, right? You take a picture, it took you 5 minutes to set the picture up, but the life lives 24 hours a day. Yeah. And you got to account and take care of the life 24/7, right?
Yeah.
B.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that. I don't think I need to bring another life in just to teach you a lesson because I think that's sort of irresponsible too. I'm gonna teach you about life by letting you play with somebody else's life. Even though they're a dog or a bird or whatever, I think I can look at you. If you can't clean your room, then you can't clean up after a bird or a dog. I already know that. And so there's steps to this. You show me that you have responsibility at a certain level, then I might get you a dog. But I've been there. I've done the dog thing. I can't stand. Matter of fact, I hate dogs right now. Again, you might send me to therapy right now, bringing up a dog. I don't even want to talk about it.
You got bad memories?
Man, I got a dog right now in the garage. We're out in the yard now, but it's a whole, let's skip that. I just don't think that that's the best way to teach them about, life in general. Maybe a goldfish or something else, but dogs is that's a whole level responsibility. Unless you're really ready to take it on yourself, and I'm not going to do what Brother Corn did. If the dog peed in some place that's my space of the house, that dog will live in the kids' room after that. And by the time you get through peeing in their room, they'll learn to clean up the pee, and take the dog out so the dog don't pee in the house. So anyway, I'm not a proponent of that one, AJ. I think it's it might be a great tool, but and maybe that's what it is. Growing up, my brother was the dog person. He took care of the dog. I hated the dog because I didn't want to walk the dog. And subsequently, I never thought I was going to be the parent.
Right, right.
So maybe that was my issue, just raising kids. This wasn't supposed to be me. I can't exactly say I planned a family. I had a family
Mm-hmm.
and I made it work. But if I had a different mindset, maybe I should have had a dog I was responsible for when I was little. I don't know.
Be on that note, we're gonna leave it right there. Agree to disagree. Hey, this has been a wonderful session. Just let me recap. We talked about dressing appropriately, shut up and listen, chess, dominoes, advocating for oneself, cook and buy groceries, how to treat women, managing emotions, and taking care of a life. Those are simply 9 recommendations that we want to share with you as parents, as fathers, to think about, having your sons being able to do by the age of 18. But despite what you agree with or what you would add to the list, back to the original opening comment, we produce a child and then what? It's got to be more than our own managing a life, food, substance, shelter, care, but we have to be intentional, and a part of that intentionality is putting things in front of them, giving them opportunities for exposure, giving them things so they can engage, that they can learn, gain confidence from that learning, and they can utilize in a broader society to hold their own in age appropriate kind of ways. And all of that is building currency, all of that is building a sense of esteem in a Maslow hierarchy kind of way, that they then have this certain sense of agency, sense of self, that then moves them in the world in competent, independent kind of ways. Any last thoughts, B?
Hey, I just appreciate you, AJ, for having this space, man. As always, I learn something every time I'm on here, and I'm glad that you have this. That you're giving us this voice and this outlet. So, thank you, brother.
Hey, more to come. I always enjoy having you, brothers. Corin, Brad, any last thoughts?
I enjoyed the show, man. We need to do lunch soon. We said it last time I was here, so I'm holding out for that lunch you owe me, man. So let's do
Check
it.
your text. I said what day?
Oh, okay. Well, this week. I'm not in trial. I'm not
Let's
in
do it
trial.
Friday.
The dog ate his text.
Yeah. All right, beautiful J4 family. Again, if you like what you're experiencing, please go over to YouTube, give us a subscribe, like the videos, share outward, and tell a friend. On behalf of J4 Conversations, guys, thanks for joining us. Truly, truly appreciate you. We are out.